Morning. Here we go for another episode of Q&A. Oh yeah, Friday feels. What's going on, guys? Get up those flex photos into the group. You know what? This is the highlight of my week. When I see those flex photos, it's usually Terry or Nick that's given it some to start, and all the guys and girls follow. I love it. We need to get this going in the girls group. Ladies, we need to start seeing a Flex Friday. This has become an institution inside of our men's academy, and so we need to start seeing a Flex Friday in the group. So all you need to do is get a photo, a little gym selfie or a little home selfie. It doesn't matter, and you need to get that up on the group wall and watch the other ladies get amongst it. So good. I love seeing it every morning. Happy Friday, team. I hope you're having a beautiful start to the morning. We're going to get this episode of Q&A podcast. If Q&A started in just 2 minutes. The lineup of questions today is again brilliant. So I'm super duper pumped. How's the week been, team? Xanth, I'm looking at your blue sky profile photo, and I'm feeling it's not quite like that at the moment. Maybe it is. Maybe it's these fresh days that the Aussies are having are actually a consequence of it being so clear. But what's going on, guys? How's your week been? So we've got some crew in here joining us already. Hello, Sean, my main man. What's going on, buddy? I hope you're well. Hello, Loz. Love that I have your company here. Mrs. Consistent. Ash, I hope your week this week has been a little bit better. Obviously a tough week there for you, mate. So I'm feeling you. Xanth, what's going on, girl? And Jen Lovegrove's in here. Guys, if you do end up watching this one on replay, please make sure that you hashtag replay in the comments so that we know you've been here. This is our way of being able to see who's falling through the cracks. Hey, Tina, good morning, hun. I hope you're having a beautiful start to your morning as well. We're going to start this episode in just a minute, guys. Now, just a reminder, if you have any questions you want to ask live, that's what I'm here for. If I can't get you the answer immediately because I don't know the answer, then I will tell you that I don't know the answer and I'll give you a refund answer as soon as I basically can. Hello, Tez. How are you, legend? Love that I have your company here, buddy. Guys, last day of the push-up comp. So this has been a freaking challenge. Would you agree? When they started throwing up those, to everyone's doing the full challenge, like 200 plus push-ups in a day, like it started to get a little bit challenging there, right? And especially if you've been like me and left all your push-ups till the end of the day because you did some training in the morning and then everything was back-ended. I've been going to bed at like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock and looking down and going, shit, I haven't done my push-ups, and getting out of bed and having to nail 200 push-ups and the last few thousand steps. But that's what you do when you stack habits. Hello, Jace. It's a really good point to raise. I look at this year, and one of the habits that, two of the habits that I've had for a very long period of time is obviously training, and then for the last couple of years, doing the 10,000 steps. This year, we've done a number of challenges over the course of the year, and I've added those habits. So the two that really come to mind are the cold shower challenge that we did in March, I think it was. So I've just stacked that habit. It doesn't get easier, by the way, with these cold showers. Like, it's fucking horrible at that time of the morning, but do it. The other thing is, who is going to continue doing their push-ups beyond this? I was speaking to Luke's squad in the men's group, and he said that he's going to continue, two of the boys are going to continue doing that beyond the end of this challenge. Maybe 100 push-ups a day, just to keep that muscle memory there. And I actually think this is a really good idea. The reason I think it's a great idea is because I don't know about you, but I certainly feel like I've got stronger with push-ups specifically over the course of the challenge. And it's funny what happens when you focus on one thing. Now, you might not have done push-ups because of whatever reasons. It could be squats that you've done. But just because you're focused on that one thing and you've done it repeatedly, all of a sudden you start to improve upon it. And it's been like quite obvious for me. I used to be able to bang out, a fair amount of push-ups in one go. Then it dropped away, and now I can get 100 push-ups out at a time. I couldn't at the start of the challenge get 50 or 60. And so it's just this focus that I think is magic. Anyway, let's get into today's Q&A. Good morning, Troy. How are you, legend? Let's get started. So first question is, and by the way, if you want to ask any questions live, please do so, team. First question is, what if I am on a protein-only diet? What could go wrong? What are the benefits? So I guess my first question is why you want a protein-only diet. That mindset, I don't know where that possibly comes from. I just don't know. A protein-only diet. Firstly, I get the idea that you're saying. Secondly, it's actually not possible to be on a protein-only diet. The reason it's not possible is because all foods, the only exception that I can really think of this is, say, oil. Oil is basically 100% fat. A pretzel is basically 100% carbohydrate. I can't think of anything that is 100% protein. So to say that you're having a protein-only diet it's actually impossible. There's no such thing. But the idea that you're saying here is that I'm eating a hell of a lot of protein. What are the possible problems with that? Well, eating enough protein is beneficial from the perspective of filling you up and making sure that you maintain muscle mass. But eating too much protein while keeping your calories modest so you lose fat is a problem, because it means that you're capping the amount of fat and carbohydrate that you're going to have. So let's say that you somehow magically managed to achieve 90% protein calories. 90% of your calories were from protein, which is near impossible. But let's say you did somehow manage to do that. Basically, the only way you could actually do that would be on all you eat is whey protein isolate. That's the only way you could possibly do it. Even if you did that, the problems would be that your fat has dropped really low and you're going to have a bunch of hormone problems, because all hormones, the sex hormones, are built on fat. So testosterone and estrogen, they're built on fat. If you have no carbohydrate in your diet, you're going to have a very boring diet and you're going to be so constipated you won't believe it. So there is no benefit into trying to go all protein. What we want to do is get protein to about 40% of our calories, which equates to around 150 to 200 grams a day. That's all you need to know. And anything more than that is just not necessary. Okay, next question. What are the alternatives to walking lunges? I like this question because walking lunges themselves are a great exercise, but for some people, they can be a bit of a tad issue on the knees, okay? So why, firstly, would walking lunges be a good thing to do? And why do we include them in some of our programs? Well, the basic reason is that it is what's called a unilateral exercise. This basically means that you aren't working both legs in the same plane at the same time, okay? So it's a single leg exercise that you're predominantly working, or you're working them at different angles at different times. Unlike, for example, a squat or a deadlift where there's symmetry in the movement. Does this make sense? So the reason that that's good is because when you train that way, you train for improved balance, mobility, strength, coordination. This is a very, very good way to train. You know, one of the probably shortfalls now that I reflect on it in my own training is I have never really done a hell of a lot of single joint exercises. And you know what? When I do something like Bulgarian split squats, my weakness in that shows up. Does anyone kind of get the same thing? To those of you that are regular gym goers, you might be able to really squat well. You might be able to really deadlift well. But then you get up on a Bulgarian split squat, for example, or a step up, and you're just really freaking weak. This comes down to the fact that you're doing single joint exercises. So it's a good way to train, to include these single joint exercises. However, they can be bad for your knees, especially if you're carrying a lot of weight or maybe your form is a bit shitty. Okay, so what do you do if you need a variation from walking lunges? Walking lunges, obviously, because they are moving, add that additional issue, right? You've got to have more balance because you're walking. So some things that you can do include stationary split squats, which are great, or you can lift the leg up and do something like a Bulgarian split squat. And if you're really, really new to training single leg exercises, a very good example is just to do the 45 degrees. So think about this. If you're used to doing the 45-degree leg press, yeah, that works the quads, the glutes, depending on where your leg angles are, you would think that if you can lift 100 kilograms in a 45-degree leg press, then if you're doing 1 leg, you'd be able to do 50, right? That would make sense, because if you're doing 2 legs, you can do 100, so you're doing 1 leg, you can do 50. I would love you to go and test this, all right? So let me tell you what the test is. Go and do a weight that you can get 10 reps out with 2 legs on the 45-degree leg press. I know a few of you are probably in the gym right now listening to this, so go and try it. Do a 45-degree leg press at a weight that you pretty much fail at 10 reps. Then what I want you to do is half that weight and then go and try to do 10 reps with 1 leg. And I bet what you find is that you are substantially weaker. You won't be able to do 50 kilos of 10 reps. You'll probably struggle with 30. Okay, and this is because when you train in an isolated joint fashion like that, it adds a whole new level of difficulty. Hence why it's recommended. Okay, so how do you build up to that? Well, I would suggest doing non-moving versions of that. So a split squat, which is essentially a staggered stance squat where you're not moving. And then once you get good at that, the next progression would be to lift your legs, lift 1 leg, the rear leg, and do a Bulgarian split squat. So 1 leg that's elevated on the back of a bench. Does this make sense, guys? You will progress your leg growth very effectively doing that sort of a regime. All right, cool. Next question. What is better to treat, a strain or a sprain? This is a great question, and I doubt that I've ever had this question before. So actually, I think what we should do is talk about what is the difference between a sprain and a strain. And I've got a graphic that I can show you that I think might really help to explain this, okay? So here we have a picture of the ankle, because the ankle is the most typical place that strains and sprains happen, okay? Particularly sprains happen. In fact, right now, I'm recovering from a pretty bad sprain. And so have a look at what the difference is. The sprain is generally an injury to the ligament. And what is a ligament? A ligament is the connection between 2 bones. So in this case, it's the lower part of your leg connecting to the bones of the foot. You have these things called ligaments. So when you do a sprain, what's essentially happening is you're stretching or tearing the ligaments in here. Okay? Most of the time, the way to recover from this is just be off them, which is what I've had to do. Personally, I rolled my ankle and then I went for a 15K run and I made it worse. A strain is typically more to do with the tendon. So here what you've got is the muscle. The muscle has this little thing called a tendon which connects it to the bone, and that tendon gets sprained or strained. Stretched or torn. Okay? So strain is muscle to bone, sprain is bone to bone. Does this make sense, guys? Was that helpful? Because to be honest, I think that needed to be defined because I don't think a lot of people would actually know the difference between those two things. So now that we know the difference, the treatment isn't really that different. Basically, what we need to be doing is exactly what I didn't do, and now I'm paying for it. And that is the acronym RICE. You might remember it from school. Rest, ice, compression, and elevation. Okay? First and foremost, get off it. What I did was thought, it's not too bad. It's just a little rolled ankle. I've done that 15,000 times before. I'll keep going. And now I'm paying for it. I did more damage to it, which means I've got more time off training. So this is where, even for a coach, my ego got in the way. Ice it, okay? Super important. And then what we're trying to do is stop the swelling and the kind of blood flow coming into it. And when you do ice compression and elevation, that's basically what you're trying to do. Okay, does that make sense, guys? All right, next up, can you force muscle growth? I don't really know what is meant by that question. Can you force muscle growth? But I'll have a go at answering perhaps the way that it might be asked. You can effectively do some basic principles to improve muscle growth. These principles might include progressive overload, which basically means constantly looking to make exercises more challenging. If you're in the gym and you're doing the same thing that you've been doing for the last 2 years and nothing's changing, that's because you're not using progressive overload. And you can keep going in there and you're not going to get any greater results because nothing is changing. The stimulus is not changing. There's no need for your body to evolve any further. So what you need to do is constantly look for ways to make movements more challenging. Number 2 is training close to failure. What that simply means is that you don't just do 10 reps and then go, oh, that was easy. You've literally got to have it so that whatever weight you are choosing to get the 10 reps out on is very close to the maximum that you can do. Okay? Now, that's relative to your training history. So if you are strong and you're putting the weight down and thinking, well, I could have probably got another 5 or 6 reps out here, you need to increase the weight or increase the difficulty in some way because you're not training close enough to failure to force muscle change. You need to eat properly. Yeah? If you're working your ass off but you don't have enough protein, you're not going to build muscle. You could force muscle growth by taking steroids. And of course, I don't recommend that. But think of it like building a house. The reason that people find the first part of their training so good, so simple, because fat loss is like bulldozing a house. You can do it in 5 minutes. But you can't build a house in 5 minutes. It literally takes time. It's what's called an anabolic process. It requires energy and time to build. So you can do things to make muscle building more efficient, and you should, but the reality is you're not going to put on 5 kilos in a year of training. It just will not happen. Here's a good way to think about it. When I get people applying for our program and I say, where do you want to be in, say, 12 months from now? And they say, I want to have 10 more kilos of muscle. Okay, let me give you a visual. 10 more kilos of muscle. Let me give you a visual of what that looks like. I want you to take a 250 gram standard sirloin, right? Sirloin steak. So it's like, what, that big? And then we take that sirloin steak, 4 of them make up 1 kilo. 10 of them, 10 kilos rather, is made up by 40 of them. So I want you to imagine you in a year's time, and of course you might not have this goal, but you in a year's time, and you've got 40 sirloin steaks taped to you, you will look like Arnold Schwarzenegger on more steroids, right? It's just people have this like crazy fucking idea of what is muscle, how quickly you can build it. It's crazy, right? You are not going to build that amount of muscle that quickly. Okay, next question. What is your workout split, Jason? How long have you been doing it? Okay, so basically I used to do pretty much all body part splits, which basically means I have a chest and a bicep day, a back and a tricep day, a leg day, and a kind of arms, core, calves day. That's how I trained for probably the first 15 years of my life. And over the last 5 to 6 years, I've definitely switched to full body style resistance training. The reason for it is many, but I don't feel I have the tolerance to go and do 25 chest exercises anymore and the last set be as good as the first set. You just get bored. I don't know about you guys, my gym sessions are 45 minutes long. I'm in and out. I go in, I get my AirPods on, and I train, and then I leave because I get bored. I don't want to be sitting there like, fucking here we go, like waiting. Just get in and get out. And with that being the case, you've got to be efficient. So for me, training efficiently means training 3 to 5 days per week, depending on what else I've got going on in my life, and doing full body style sessions. That way, if I miss a day because something's happened, I'm missing a full body day, but I've already trained 3 full body days earlier in the week. If I'm doing a body part split and I'm missing leg day, then that means I haven't trained legs in 2 weeks by the next time that I've trained it. Does this make sense? Tina comes in. This is a great question, just looking at it. Does the order of exercises in a program matter? I tend to do all the machines first as they are available, and then free weights floor, as the benches are usually hot property and I need to wait to claim one. Yeah, so the way that we typically would order a program, Tina, is to do the most difficult movements first, and those most difficult movements, and it's a great question, by the way, they're going to be the compound movements, which basically mean the heavier lifts, the all of body lifts. So as an example, you've mentioned here benches. So I'm assuming that you're doing some sort of kind of benching, pressing, pulling type movement. With that being the case, I would always start with the bigger movements first. So probably the opposite order to what you're doing them. It is very difficult. When you've got a busy gym, what can you do? I would just do what you can. If you've got a super busy gym, do what you can. But the reason that we want to do those heavy compound movements first is because by the time, okay, so imagine this, right? People go into the gym and they start with, I'll just give you an example of a guy training chest, okay? So they'll go in and do like cables to start. And then they'll go and do some dumbbell flies to start. And then they'll try to do a bench press, which is the primary growth stimulus, and doesn't work. Let's say you're a woman, right? And you're going in and the first thing you do is the abductor machine, right? Where you split, my missus calls it the slut machine, but it's the one where you just like open your legs up and out, right? That is a largely ineffective exercise compared to something like a hip thrust, okay? Which is a very heavy exercise to do and very effective exercise to do. So if I'm a woman and I'm going in and I want to be efficient, and the first thing I'm going in and doing is the abductor machine, that's crazy. It's crazy. You want to be putting the hardest things at the start. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question, Tina? There's a practicality component to that as well. So I do understand that, yes, hot property, it's harder because most people who have been in the gym for a while know that you should be doing, well, where possible, doing squats, doing deadlifts, doing bench press. These are called compound movements. And the reason that they're hot property is not because there's something nice about that bench. It's because they're the movements which bring the biggest bang for buck. So actually, if you were like looking at this from a really like macro perspective, Tina, I would just say, let's say you had 20 minutes to train. Can you get an effective workout in? Yeah, you could. Maybe just go and do 3 compound movements. I'll do a bench, I'll do maybe a stiff leg deadlift, and then I'll do some sort of rowing back machine as an example, and take them as close as possible to failure. Going in and doing like loads of machines, I think machines have their role. For me, machines are a good stepping stone and confidence builder. But I would suggest watching the 8th guide inside the program, which I'm teaching. It's called the Gym Gains Guide, and it's a 45-minute workshop on really how you should get the most efficiency out of your workouts. Okay, so come back to me, teens, after you've watched that. And good morning as well, Maddie Harvey. Let's keep going. How does exercise or weight training slow down aging? This is such an epic question. And to be honest, I could write an essay on this question. It is a multifactorial manner in which it works. I think firstly we want to define the difference between chronological age and biological age. Okay? I am 41 chronologically. I don't feel 41 biologically. So some people's chronological age is far greater than their biological age, or vice versa. So when we're talking about slowing down aging, of course, we can't slow down how chronologically old we get, but we can slow down how biologically aged we are. Does that make sense? So what are we looking for when we think about aging? We're looking for a more functional life. That's probably the most important thing. Would you guys agree? Most of you guys are between 30 and 55, 60. That's the age range, right? And so what you're looking for is a more functional life. So what this means is more strength, more flexibility, more endurance, more cardiovascular fitness, better balance so you don't fall over and break your hip. These adaptations come with exercise, okay? So whilst exercise on its own is not a very good way to lose weight, it has many additional benefits, and you can choose the one that's most important to you. What I mean by this is, whatever adaptation you seek in your body, then there is a training module that would support that adaptation. So as an example, and to use a silly example, if you wanted greater cardiovascular fitness, then training 5 days in the week in the gym is not the best option. If you wanted to get stronger, then training in the gym with high reps of 20 to 30 reps is not the way to get stronger. You need to be operating in the low rep zone. So here's the way to think about it. You've got to look at what are the adaptations that I actually want to create and what's the best way to go about getting there. And then you look at all the other things that come with that. More muscle, stronger bones, improved hormones. We could get really deep on this question and we could say exercise helps you with clearing off the rust, which is called antioxidation. Exercise helps you with brain function through endorphins and neurotransmitters. And then the more behavioral stuff like self-belief and confidence. We could get like so freaking deep in this. But suffice to say, I really think that from a kind of weight loss perspective, zone in on your nutrition and just daily moving. But when it comes to exercise, think, what is the adaptation that I'd really, really love to see in my body, and go after that. Okay, last question. How do I judge if a workout is effective? Well, here's the way most people judge it. Am I super tired and out of breath? Am I sweating a lot? Am I really, really sore? Am I completely ruined the next day? And that's the way we judge it. These are terrible metrics for judging whether a workout is good or not. Terrible metrics. The best metric that you should be thinking about is, am I making progress to whatever outcome that I want over the long term? So look at that in the perspective of weight loss. Is this workout effective? Well, I'm super sweaty and I'm sore. Yeah, okay, but unless you are consistently and sustainably losing weight, then it's not a very good workout. For example, you could just be running on a treadmill and getting really, really sweaty because it's hot outside and there's no air conditioning and you'd sweat. So you've got to make sure that we're looking at the right metrics when we answer this question. I think the short answer is, are you getting closer towards whatever goal you actually have set in your mind? Does this make sense? Guys, that's it. I'm actually going to pull up, because we've gone for half an hour. There's a couple more questions, but I might pull them into next week's Q&A. This has been like a pretty deep version of Q&A and some really, really good questions. Keep these coming, guys. These are fantastic. And well done on you guys for showing up. If you watch this one on replay, please hashtag replay. Other than that, guys, have a beautiful, beautiful start to your morning. We'll see you in the next episode of Q&A. Cheers.